Alright, welcome back. We are Comp 229 Web Application Development, and it's week 5, part 2 of our video series, Express CRUD 2. So we're going to continue with Express CRUD. Let's take a look at some technical requirements. We've added all the book routes have been completed, all the book views have been completed, and we still need to understand our model view controller pattern and full CRUD. In this video, we're going to continue performing CRUD operations on the bookstore database, and we're going to restructure our app so that it conforms to an MVC structure, and we're going to start preparing for authentication, which is going to happen next week. Let's get to it. All right, so where last we left off, we were pretty good. We had our structure, but one of the things we didn't have is the ability to stop us from deleting. I mean, if I just go up here and go delete, Larry Niven's Ring World has been deleted and it's gone for good. We can't get it back. We'd have to go in and type it in again, which is difficult. So that's something that we have to think about. So how do we do this? There's a couple ways to stop this from happening. The buttons that are being pressed are an event, a JavaScript event that we can use. So that's something to consider. That a JavaScript event is the thing that we're going to be, we can possibly use. The other thing that we got to consider is if it's a JavaScript event, where can we slip it in? We could do it by using the server side. We can also stop it on the client side. So where does the client side exist? Well, in the public folder. Remember? Up in here. Under scripts, under app.js, we have this little function. This is what we did in Comp 125, where we're looking at functionality from a front-end client-side perspective. This is all client-side scripting. We want to create an event so that way if the a particular button is pressed, then what we want to do is have the ability to respond to the button press event and stop it from happening. A confirm should come up. Not an alert, but close enough. And this is the only time that I think alerts or confirms are good, is when it's super important to get the user's attention because it'll break them out of their flow. And so it's not overall great user experience, but this is an important part. We have to stop them. We have to, kind of say, hey, we're going to perform a deletion. Are you sure? I think this is a good reason to do it. So how does this look? Well, we could use jQuery, that's for sure, because we have access to jQuery. But instead, what I'm going to do is inside the start menu or the start function, I'm going to call, I want to search for all buttons that have a class of button-danger. Think about that, the red button. That's how I'm going to target it. So any red button, we have a button-danger, it's going to say, are you sure? Okay, that's what's going to happen. So the way to do that is, first of all, we want to say, hey, query selector. So we want to say that document.query selector, right? And query selector is going to find the first one. We should probably add an event for all of them. Query selector all. So all of them with a selector of the following. So again, it's going to be /button-danger. So that's the class that we're looking for, a class of button danger. So hey, this is going to be this all the delete buttons. We're going to call them. So we're going to say let delete buttons be a list of all the buttons that have a danger, a red button, all the red buttons. And what I want to do is we want to create an event listener for all these things. All right, so we're going to say I want to add an event listener for all of them. Now I could do this, and I could say add event listener, but that doesn't make any sense. And even if I said delete buttons.add event listener, that doesn't make any sense. In fact, what I need to do instead is go through for each object. So we'll look at we'll say button in or of delete buttons. So for all these buttons, we're going to do a little for each loop equivalent. For every button is what we're saying. For every button in delete buttons, it's a node list of elements, this one, right? We want to say button.add event listener. And by the way, these buttons are going to be, let's see if this will work. We'll add the click event, right? And when the click event is triggered, I'll use the new syntax. All right, pretty simple. So we're going to say, hey, for every button in the delete button and the list of delete buttons, and again, we may have to use a for in instead of a for of. We'll check that in a second. Well, we want to say when the button is clicked, if not confirm, are you sure? Right? So kind of stuff, you're going to delete. There's no other way we can do this. Are you sure? Right? If this is not true, then what we want is we want to prevent default behavior. We want to say that no event.prevent default that's what you want, prevent default. And we want to window.location.assign. So this is equivalent to redirect to the /book list. Okay. Now let's see if this is going to work for each button. We may have to also use the for each loop. Let's see how that works. So first of all, what happens? Does this even get triggered? And what we're looking for is this confirm to pop up. Okay, otherwise it's just going to perform the delete. All right, so this is this. Let's get back to this now and we'll refresh the page. And let's see, one thing to do is always check to see if that under the sources is there. So we look at scripts and you can look at app.js and you can see that that is indeed something that's inside the sources. We know it's taken. And what we want to do here is let's try it with something we can replace, like iRobot. So delete. And sure enough, it says, are you sure? Localhost 3000. If we press cancel, no delete. If I press delete, and if it says, are you sure? And I press OK, then goodbye, iRobot. Okay, now we can put it back, of course. That's why I picked that one. Because we've put it in, we can put it back. So let's just go in, and we can find iRobot. There it is. We can insert that one. And you know what? Let's see how that looks now when we insert it back in. It's right at the bottom, and that's where it gets inserted. Okay, and we can change the value of that. We can go and say that that's only $14.95 and submit it, and automatically it updates. So we're looking at full CRUD happening right now, plus that delete little safeguard that we just put in there. So that is a quick and easy way of doing it. Again, just to recap how that's done. App.js inside the scripts folder, inside of our public folder. Think about this as the public face of anything we want to put in here, right? And a good example of that is if I actually navigate to the index.html in here, it'll work if I had an index.html in the public folder. I don't right now. And so I'm not navigating to something like that, but I could. I totally could do that. And so that means if I go to localhost index.html, it'll go to wherever, if I have one in there, because it's on the static list. Anyway, so scripts gets added into our in server under our index. Actually, if you look at our partials, and if you look at the footer for our partials, you can see here that at the bottom, the very bottom script, we're connecting to scripts app.js. And scripts, because of public being on the path, it's easy for us to search for scripts and app.js. That's how it works. Okay. And so because we go there, this script is activated when the window finishes loading, whenever that is. And once the window finishes loading, we go to our start menu, and from there we get a list of all delete buttons by using query selector all. Query selector all is similar to using jQuery. And if you've done jQuery in the past, it's almost identical to this syntax, but you can do it in one. That's one thing. jQuery uses shorthand where you can say something like document.querySelectorAll or $button -danger.click which is like doing this for all the buttons, add a click event to all of them. And then when a click event is added, then do this part would remain pretty much identical, right? Just this part would all be shortened for jQuery. Okay, so that's it for this part. Let's get back to the next part of CRUD that we wanted to fix. So we talked about restructure, and I talked about restructure a lot because of we know we're going to prepare for authentication, and the authentication part is coming up, and for your assignment number 2 you need to do authentication, which is going to be due, I believe, next week. So let's get started with authentication right now, at least from a restructure perspective, so you have some of the things you need for next week's release. Okay, so how does this work? Well, we have our controllers folder, and what we need to do is mirror some of the stuff we have in here. We don't have a users anything. I've just left that as a placeholder. We can delete that later on. But for now, let's put in book and index controllers. So again, new file, book.js, and then also new file, index.js. Okay, so let's do the index.js first, and we'll talk about how we're separating things out and why again. So if we look at the controller structure, then really what we're thinking about is branching off. Let's go with our index first. We want to say let express equals to require express. We want to pass in some functionality that we had inside our router in here. And let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so that's the router. And then what we want to do is, let's start the first one. So we're going to say module.exports. Again, there's different ways of doing the module exports. We can add the equal sign for module.exports. We can also do dot. Dot is like I'm adding in a object to the bag, or think about this as the container that is the module itself. So I want something called display homepage. There's that. And in the display homepage, it's going to be equal to request response and next an event, basically. And then we're going to do the res render. We're going to go to the index controller, and then from the index controller, the index view, sorry, we're going to pass in a title, which is home. So let's take a look and see how this looks. What did I just do there, and why do I want to decouple it this way? So I'm going to split screens here, and on the left I'm going to put the current router, and on the right I'm going to put the index controller. Okay, so what I'm doing here is actually splitting off this part. So this part here is going to be something that I'm doing over here, not over here. And you're going to say, well, why would I do that? Well, because it becomes more testable. I can actually test this controller. I can't really test the route so much. It's a lot more difficult to test the route when it's closely coupled or tightly coupled this way. So from a testing framework perspective, it's better to do it this way. That's one. Second thing is, I can do routing much separate. I can give someone to do routing, someone create all the routes, and someone else can, from a separation of concerns, can take care of the actual logic, the controller logic behind the route. It's almost like the code behind file equivalent. This is what this is. And they're very simple right now because it's not like we have a lot of content, but that's what it does. So if that's the case, then what changes do I have to make to the router in order for me to make this connection? Okay, so, and we're still not quite done here, and we'll talk about that. First of all, we need to make a reference to the controller, which is this, we can call this the index controller, if you will. All right, so here we're making new these vars are bad. I don't know why we have them there. Let's take var away and put lets. I think that's the better way of putting it. Not sure how that escaped me. Did I do the same thing for my routes for here? Oh no, here we did okay. And somehow here I used vars. I'm not sure why. Okay. Oh, that's because, sorry, that's because that was pre-existing. I just didn't change those. Index controller. Making excuses for not capturing it. Okay, require, and we're going to say that we want to go into the controllers. We're going to go up one into controllers, and then into index. Okay, so that's where the index controller. So we're making a reference. So this line here makes a reference to this thing. So index controller has one function right now called display home page, and that's what I'm going to call here. So instead of doing all of this work, I can simplify this by saying, hey, if I go home, I want to also go index controller. Hey, index controller, I want to display my home page, and that's it. That's how it's a one-liner now for my route, which is much cleaner looking. And then later on, when we want to protect routes, it'll be a lot easier for us to do it this way than for us to have all this extra business over here, which has nothing to do with routing. This is to do with response. Okay. Routing is creating your routes, and these are all events. This is actually what happens. This is the logic behind the event that we're calling. And we can call this again and again if I want to, because this is a method. That's what this is. All right, so that's cool. So I want to do the same thing for the other ones. So just like, we're just going to do this stuff first. So I'm going to copy paste this. So display home page, then we're going to display the ad page, display the the other parts too. Again, you can see that these are all very simple because I'm displaying the about page, the product page, the services page, and so on. This is the exact same, so I can use the exact same route for this one, or the exact same logic. This is where I can save, right? So that's the same, because whether I'm going to the slash or the home, it's the same, right? But I need some other ones. So let's put in the other ones. So this is display the, we'll call this the about page. And just to be sure, I'm just going to grab this and slap it in there, right? So that's done. And now I can just take this index controller and replace this with this, all of this, with this, and we're going to display the about page. You can see that it comes up now because it detects it, and then we'll do the next one. So you can see that this is a simple fix. So display the products page. We don't have really any products. Maybe we'll have them later. So this is the products page, and this will be products. I might as well just type it. And we'll do the other ones too. Might as well do them all first. Services page. Services. Again, this is just a bit of a restructure for you. And the last one is the contact page. So, contact. Okay, so that's all that. So we have all of our pages. This is all the logic. Home page, about page, product page, services page, and contact page. They go different places. They do something, each one of them, but now these ones have to use the right logic. So we're just going to grab all this, and we're just going to do one of these, and this will be display the products page. And this will be display the services page. See how that's simple. And then finally display the contact page. Okay, so that's how it looks. Looks cleaner. This looks easier to look at because basically each of the module exports, I'm making it a function. That's the function name. I could also make it, I'm just letting you know, a named function, right, that I have here as well. So whatever the function is going to be called here, and I can make it so that in here internally I can do this. Another way of listing this module exports is to define a larger object a larger object that has display home page, display about page, display product page as properties, or if you will. But we can do it this way too. All we're doing is we're adding to the container exports. Okay, so that is this page. And now let's test to see if both pages are working the way they should. This is the main route, the top level routing, and see if it works. So I'll go back to here and refresh the page, and then we can click in here, and it looks like we're still pretty good, right? These are all things that normally happen, and we're using our new controller separation logic. Okay, so this is pretty good. Let's do the same thing now for the book controller. So again, over here, this is the book controller, and on this side, this is the book router. So let's click on the book router. More complex, this one, but it's going to be very similar in terms of our strategy that we're going to do here. And this is why we do this kind of stuff, so that way we can continue. Okay, so let express, just like we did before, equal to require express. Okay, and then we're going to say let router equal to require, express.router. And then what we want is to create a reference to the DB schema, right? Which is really our model. In this case, it's let's book equal to require /models/book. All right, so that we get a reference to the book model. We need that because even though we have it here, remember, we won't need it on this side anymore. The routing has nothing to do with the books. It'll only be done over here on this side. Okay, so that's something that is going to be important for us to do. And also from a Mongoose perspective, when we do Mongoose manipulation, see if Mongoose is kind of grayed out here. Let's put that over here too. So let's go Mongoose is equal to require.mongoose. You don't really need this, and we'll talk about why. All right. So first of all, this almost looks well. It is identical, but the difference is now what we want to do. We want to display the book list. This is what this is going to be. So let's scaffold this part out first this time. So module.exports.display book list, right? That's going to equal to something. For now, I'm just going to make it equal to this request response object. So all of this is what we're going to grab. That's exactly what we're doing. So we're going to say grab that and put that there. And that really is exactly what we need to do. There is nothing else that needs to go in here except for this, right? And then we just replace this by putting that over there. And again, we make a reference to the book controller. So we can do that here. We can say let's book controller equal to require controllers book, right? So now we have access to the book controller, and we can replace all of this with book controller dot display book list. Nice and easy. Again, same kind of operation that we've been doing over there. Okay, so that is the display book list operation. Let's continue. Module.exports. And this one will be the we're going to display the add page. Display add page, and that equals to in the add page all of this. So copy this, put it over here, and then over here we're going to say that book controller dot display add page. Okay, so that's done. Module.exports, dot process add page. And this is where it gets really nice because it kind of is descriptive for us, right? We can see what's happening here. So again, we're going to grab all of this from here all the way down. Let's just do a cut this time. So cut it out and then paste it in. Nice and easy. And then from here, we're just going to say book controller dot process add page. Done. See how much faster this is now, right? Module dot exports dot display edit page. That's equal to all of this. Cut. And here we'll just do the same thing. We say book controller dot display edit page. Different, right? Next, module dot exports dot process edit page. That's equal to all of this, all the way to the bottom right here. Cut, paste, and you can see now we can put in book controller dot process edit page. Finally, we're going to do the delete. Module dot exports dot delete page. Right? So there's a couple of ways of doing this. Really, we want to be descriptive. So delete page doesn't make any sense, but perform delete might be better. Perform delete, and that's equal to all of this. So all we're doing is, again, just decoupling the stuff from one to the next. And now you can see that our book controller perform delete is complete. And it looks beautiful, right? If you like the way this looks, it's because it's nice and easy to look at. And we can just even take away some spacing there. Again, super easy to troubleshoot now. Why? Because we can look at the roots. Before, the roots were a little bit muddled with all this controller logic, right? That was kind of tightly coupled. Now the roots are beautiful. And when we convert this Express server to an API eventually, then it'll be much easier to do it when our roots look like this, right? The endpoints. Here, as an example, now also on this side, we can see that it's far easier to see that there's separation of concerns. Display add page, and they mean something. These things have some meaning, where we can see all the different things that they're named properly. So let's just get rid of this part. In fact, we'll close all this off just to make it nice and easy, and we will test our application. Hopefully it's going to work and not fail. So, all right, so about products, services, books. Hey, books looks like it's working. Let us delete a book. We're still good. No, we don't want to delete RimWorld. Cool, let's add a book. Looks like it's working okay, the link. And how about if you want to edit a book? Well, if edit works, then add will work. Let's make this 1496. That looks pretty good. So everything looks like it's functional at this point. And that's pretty good. That's a lot further than, as an example, that we normally get in week 5. And the reason for this is because this is what we need to do. We want to make sure that we've got full CRUD and we've restructured at the same time. So why restructure? Let's go back and talk about this. I'm going to be adding authentication next week. And when we do that, we want our structure to be nice and easy to attack with different things. There's two types of authentication we can use. Authentication with Passport, which we're going to start off with. And then we're going to move into authentication with JWT and JSON Web Tokens. And we're going to do that to convert our some of our code into an API. And we'll talk about what that is compared to what we're doing right now. Okay, that's it for me for this week and for this this lesson. And then we'll get back, and in the